Nobody checks on the quiet man. Nobody claps for silence. But the man who disappears and comes back changed, that man earns respect without asking for it. The world forgets your name until it fears your presence, and that's exactly where your power begins. You weren't born to fit in. You were built to see what others ignore. While they talk loud, you stay calm. While they chase approval, you build your mind. Solitude isn't weakness, it's training. Machiavelli didn't write for the crowd. He wrote for the outsider. The man who thinks deeper, watches longer, strikes colder. The one who doesn't seek love, but commands authority. The one who turns rejection into discipline. If they underestimated you, good, that's your advantage. You're no longer here to explain yourself. You're here to learn how to dominate in silence. Because power doesn't shout, it whispers through action. Respect isn't given to the loudest. It's given to the one who disappears and comes back untouchable. The one who plans quietly while the world burns. That's the kind of man this world can't control. This isn't about ego. It's about influence, about developing your strategy, your emotional discipline, your leadership, without needing a single word of praise. That's where real power lives. What you're about to hear isn't comfort, it's truth, sharp, cold, and liberating. These are ancient strategies for men who lead from the shadows, not for applause, but for impact. So now the question isn't, why am I alone? The question is, how do I use this silence to become unstoppable? Let's unlock the philosophy Machiavelli left behind for those bold enough to walk alone.
The silent power. They keep asking why you're quiet, why you disappear, why you don't fight for attention. But you've already learned, real authority doesn't come from noise, it comes from clarity. You've outgrown the need to explain every move. Let them wonder. That confusion is your camouflage. When a man speaks too much, he reveals his weaknesses. He gives the world a blueprint to hurt him. Machiavelli knew this. When they don't know what you're thinking, they can't control your next move. Mystery isn't arrogance, it's defense. Silence, when mastered, becomes strategy. Think about the men you truly respect. They don't talk endlessly. They walk into a room and shift the air. That's not magic. That's restraint. Influence isn't about being everywhere. It's about being remembered when you're not. And nothing echoes louder than disciplined absence. In everyday life, it looks like this. You're insulted, and instead of reacting, you smile and say nothing. That's strength. You disappear from a toxic group chat without announcement. That's clarity. You walk away from drama without a final speech. That's control, and control builds respect. The average man needs constant validation. He posts, he explains, he defends himself to people who don't even care. But the man with inner power doesn't chase applause. He trains, he studies, he watches. He doesn't show his growth until it's impossible to ignore. Your silence makes people uncomfortable. Good. It forces them to reflect, to guess, to feel your presence even when you're gone. And the truth is, power grows best in the shadows. When no one sees your next step, you become unpredictable. And what they can't predict, they fear. This isn't about being cold. It's about being precise. When you no longer explain yourself, you stop wasting energy on those who never respected your mind in the first place. Instead, you focus that energy on building something bigger, something unshakable. That's how legacy begins. And once you understand that silence is a weapon, you'll never be loud again. You'll speak when it matters, and only then, because the man who talks less usually knows more. And while the world reacts, you'll be getting ready for something far more dangerous.
Emotional detachment. They told you to be kind, available, open, but no one warned you that the more available you are, the less value you hold. The modern world doesn't reward warmth, it exploits it. What earns respect today is emotional detachment. Not because you're cruel, but because you're aware. Machiavelli knew this long before social media existed. He saw that those who gave too much were used the most, and the man who knew how to walk away without anger, without drama, always had the upper hand. It's not about being heartless, it's about being untouchable. You don't need to cut people with words. Your silence already says what needs to be said. When you stop chasing people who treat you as an option, something shifts. Suddenly, they feel your absence. They start respecting your boundaries, not because you demanded it, but because you enforced it. Practical example: stop replying to disrespect. You don't need to explain why you left a conversation. Just leave. Decline the invite. Don't justify it. The moment you stop trying to be liked, you become respected. Authority doesn't ask permission. It sets the tone and walks. Being emotionally detached doesn't mean being numb. It means having self-mastery. You feel everything, but you don't let it control you. When someone triggers you, you pause. When life hits hard, you don't react, you recalibrate. That's leadership in its purest form. Think about the people who suddenly value you more after you create distance. That's not magic, it's psychology. Human beings crave what they can't fully grasp, and when you're not emotionally available, you become an enigma. Power lives in that space of mystery. Don't mistake coldness for weakness. It's easy to explode. It takes discipline to stay still. The strongest men are the ones who stay calm in chaos, who don't trade their peace for validation. Emotional discipline is the quiet armor of those who don't break, even when bent. And once you embrace emotional detachment, you'll notice a shift. People start respecting your time, your words, your presence. And those who don't, they quietly fade away, right where they belong. Now, let's look at how the art of being underestimated multiplies your power even further. The power of being underestimated. When they think you're weak, they drop their guard.
That's where the real strategy begins. Power isn't about being loud or flashy. It's about being underestimated and knowing it. That's the advantage few talk about, because most men crave attention, but the wise man craves position. Machiavelli observed that those who seek recognition too early become predictable. And in a world where every move is tracked, being invisible is liberation. The man who doesn't post his plans, doesn't explain his goals, and doesn't show off his progress, he becomes untouchable. Have you noticed how the quietest guy in the room is often the one people secretly watch? That's not an accident. That's presence without performance. In the shadows, you move smarter. You make fewer mistakes. You build your empire while others chase applause. In your daily life, use this like a weapon. Keep your moves to yourself. Don't share what you're building until it's too big to ignore. Let them think you're behind, distracted, small. And when you rise, they won't know how you got there. And that's the whole point. People are addicted to visibility, but attention is a double-edged sword. The more people see you, the more they feel entitled to judge you, control you, predict you. The man who is underestimated controls the pace of the game because no one's watching his pieces. Being invisible isn't about shame. It's about freedom. Freedom to think, to grow, to plan in silence. You're not hiding, you're preparing. And when you're ready, you don't need permission to show up strong. The shock on their faces, that's your reward. Let them gossip. Let them assume. You don't need to fight rumors or fix anyone's perception. Your results will say what your mouth never has to. Influence isn't about convincing people. It's about building something so solid they can't deny it anymore. And when you master the art of being underestimated, you unlock a new kind of power. One that grows quietly, but strikes without warning. But even that power is useless without one key discipline: the control of your inner world.
Self-mastery over everything. You can conquer the world, but if you haven't conquered yourself, it all falls apart. The strongest men don't dominate others first. They dominate their own mind, their habits, their impulses. Machiavelli knew leadership starts within. Without inner order, external power is chaos. Most people are slaves to emotion. One insult and they explode. One failure and they quit. But the man who practices self-mastery doesn't flinch. He feels everything and still chooses his response. That's not weakness. That's absolute authority over the self. Discipline isn't sexy, it's brutal. Waking up when you don't feel like it. Saying no when your body screams yes. Building something that no one claps for yet. But this is where real power hides, in the silence of habits repeated long after motivation dies. Want examples? Replace phone scrolling with a cold shower and a book. Trade your second coffee for 15 minutes of journaling. Spend one weekend without social media and observe how your mind sharpens. These small actions, done consistently, create invisible strength. Self-mastery means you no longer depend on willpower. You rely on structure. You set systems so strong that even on your worst day, they carry you. It's building your life like a fortress, brick by brick, rule by rule. Not for others to admire, but for you to withstand storms. You don't need external rules when you have internal order.
That's the difference between boys and men. Boys need to be told what to do. Men decide their own standard and then enforce it ruthlessly. Discipline becomes your identity, not an act, a way of being. And here's the twist. Once you controlled yourself, no one else can. You become mentally untouchable. Insults don't stick. Temptations lose their grip. Setbacks become fuel. The game changes, not because the world changes, but because you're no longer playing it emotionally. But even the most disciplined man must choose his battles wisely, because power isn't just in restraint. It's in knowing what deserves your energy in the first place. That's where our next principle begins, the ruthless art of selective engagement.
Selective engagement. Not every war is worth fighting. Not every invitation deserves your presence. The man who engages with everything ends up controlled by everything. Real power lies in choosing your battles with precision. Machiavelli taught that strategy isn't about action, but about restraint. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to prove yourself to everyone who doubts you. Most people aren't attacking you, they're projecting their own chaos. And when you respond to chaos, you become part of it. That's a loss disguised as pride. Being strategic with your attention is a form of leadership. Every minute you waste on drama is a minute you could have invested in growth. The emotionally undisciplined man chases arguments. The powerful one, he vanishes, not out of fear, but out of focus. Real-life example? Someone sends a passive-aggressive message, ignore it. A coworker disrespects you, correct it once, then withdraw. Someone tries to bait you online, silence. The goal isn't to be liked. The goal is to remain in control of your energy. Selective engagement is a filter. It keeps your mind clean and your goals protected. Think of your focus as currency. Are you spending it on what pays you back? Or are you going broke trying to win fights that only feed your ego? Choose your investments wisely. You're not being cold. You're being precise. You're protecting your peace like a fortress, because every time you engage with nonsense, you lower your frequency. And power can't thrive in noise. Authority needs silence. Strategy needs space. The men who engage with everything rarely build anything. They're too busy reacting. But those who know when to stay silent, when to walk away, when to disappear, they're the ones quietly constructing something others can't even see yet. That's how dominance begins. But to truly master selective engagement, you need something deeper, a clear sense of self-respect. Because if you don't know who you are, every distraction will feel important. And that's why our next step is uncovering the root of self-respect.
Rooted self-respect. Respect from others starts with respect for yourself, but not the kind built on words or motivational quotes, the kind forged in solitude, in choices, in the way you carry yourself when no one's watching. Real authority is an echo of internal standards. Machiavelli would tell you, if you don't define your own value, the world will define it for you, and always too low. That's why self-respect isn't ego, it's foundation. It's what keeps you from begging for attention or shrinking in front of disrespect. Every time you let something slide that violates your standard, you weaken your own influence. And every time you say no with calm confidence, you reinforce your dominance. Authority doesn't yell. It radiates from a man who knows exactly who he is. In practice, this means upgrading your standards from the people you allow in your life to the content you consume. You're not a trash bin for gossip or mediocrity. Curate your world like it matters, because it does. Your inputs shape your identity. Self-respect shows in your habits. Do you keep promises to yourself? Do you do the hard things when no one's applauding? That's what separates a man with inner power from one who just performs strength. One is a costume. The other is a code. You don't need to announce your standards. You just live them. And others feel it. They treat you differently, not because you demand it, but because your presence makes it clear. This is not a man who tolerates nonsense. That's the root of true influence. The most dangerous men aren't the loudest, they're the clearest. Clear in values, clear in vision, clear in boundaries. They don't need permission. They don't need applause. They simply move, and that movement shapes the room without needing a single word. But having a strong identity isn't enough if you're still tied to the past. To grow into power, you must first cut the emotional weights that hold you down. That's where we go next, the brutal discipline of emotional detachment from your own story.
Emotional detachment from your story. Your past happened, but it doesn't have to keep happening. Too many men wear their trauma like a badge, repeating the same stories, looking for sympathy. That's not healing, that's imprisonment. Machiavelli would say, use your pain, don't live in it. There's power in looking back, once, just enough to extract the lesson. Then you close the book. You're not the boy they abandoned, not the man she left, not the failure they laughed at. You're the strategist who turned every scar into a blade. Detaching from your story doesn't mean denying your pain. It means refusing to let it define your future. You felt it, yes. You survived it, yes. But now you use it to think sharper, move quieter, and lead with the kind of power that silence teaches best. Here's the truth. Nobody owes you healing. Nobody will carry you through the shadows. And that's okay, because the moment you stop waiting for closure, you start creating transformation. The discipline to detach is a kind of leadership no one teaches, but every powerful man learns. Example, start catching your own thoughts. That loop of, why did this happen to me? Replace it with, how can I use this now? Journal your setbacks, extract strategy, build systems that turn your old wounds into warnings, reminders of who you'll never be again. The world respects a man who's hard to read, but even more, one who's rewritten himself, not because someone inspired him, but because he got tired of dragging his own history like chains. Authority begins when excuses end. You either carry your story or your story carries you. Your influence multiplies when you stop leaking energy through resentment. That quiet bitterness, it weakens you. It keeps you reactive, unfocused. Let go not for peace, but for precision, so you can walk light and strike hard, unchained by the ghosts behind you. But to detach from your past fully, you need to master another brutal truth. You owe no one an explanation. And the next level of power is found in radical solitude, the kind that separates leaders from the herd.
Radical solitude. Most people fear being alone, not because solitude is bad, but because it forces them to face who they really are. But Machiavelli would argue, power is born in silence, not in applause. A man who can sit with himself without distraction is a man building a fortress no one sees. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's focus without interruption. It's where you read the books that sharpen your mind, where you build systems that no one understands yet, where your strategy takes shape far from the noise of shallow conversations and cheap validations. When you detach from the herd, you stop copying their chaos. You think clearer, you plan longer, you move smarter. Most people panic in stillness. You build. While others scroll, you study. While they complain, you upgrade. That's where real influence begins. Need examples? Spend 2 weekends without going out. No parties, no endless talking. Just you, a journal, a plan, and a few brutal books like The 48 Laws of Power, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, or Discourses on Livy. Watch how your mind shifts from noise to command. Solitude lets you observe, and observation is where strategy lives. You begin to notice how people move, how they react, where they're weak. You don't need to engage, you just store data. You become the man who knows more than he speaks. This terrifies people, because a man who doesn't beg for company, who doesn't fear being forgotten, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is power, because no one can control a man who no longer needs to be seen. But solitude has a cost. It burns away illusion. You'll see the lies you've believed, the mediocrity you tolerated, the time you wasted. And that's good, because once you're honest with yourself, truly honest, no one else's opinion can shake you again. Still, to wield the power of solitude properly, you need one final adjustment. Your appearance must never match your strength. The next level of strategy? Hiding your sharpest weapons in plain sight.
Camouflaged strength. A true strategist never reveals his full power. He walks like a shadow, not a storm. Machiavelli didn't praise loud victories. He praised subtle dominance, the kind that looks like weakness until it's too late. Real strength is invisible until it's unstoppable. In a world obsessed with showing off, the one who holds back becomes dangerous. You don't need to wear your muscles, flash your wins, or announce your next move. The moment they think they understand you, they begin to predict you, and that's when you lose the edge. Camouflaged strength is what separates kings from performers. It's the leader who listens more than he speaks, the man who blends in, then strikes where no one expected. This isn't cowardice, this is chess, and the board favors those who stay unreadable. Example? You're underestimated at work. Let them talk. Build results in silence. You're ignored in a room. take notes on who's watching who. You're not here to prove yourself. You're here to watch them expose their own weaknesses while you sharpen yours. Your presence should be subtle, but unsettling. Let people sense something's different, but not know why. That's influence. When you're forgotten, they relax. When you return, they panic. That's the hidden advantage of staying silent until your move is irreversible. Don't confuse being unseen with being irrelevant. A sniper isn't less lethal because you can't see him. In fact, that's exactly why he's feared. You gain the upper hand by moving slow, moving quiet, and never playing your real hand until it's game over. And when you do act, do it with finality. Let your strike be so precise that no one doubts who truly held power all along. Power that was never announced, only revealed when the moment was right. That's what makes you unforgettable. Still, there's one more transformation. Because even camouflaged power is limited if your mind stays in the past. To ascend, you must embrace detachment from what you were and become only loyal to what you're becoming.
Loyalty to the future. Most men stay trapped not because of others, but because they're loyal to a version of themselves that no longer serves them. They defend old habits, old identities, old pain. Machiavellian would call this strategic foolishness. A prince must evolve or be devoured. You are not your past. You are your next move. Everything you've done, every mistake, every delay, it was training. But the moment you let it define your worth, you surrender authority. Power lives in those who update themselves brutally and often. Detachment isn't betrayal, it's wisdom. That boy you used to be, he got you here, but he can't take you further. He was emotional. He wanted to be liked. He needed applause. You, now, need something higher. Clarity, precision, discipline, not approval, results. Let go of old dreams that were never yours. Kill the version of you who played it safe. Strip away the labels they gave you. Poor, weak, sensitive, passive. None of that matters now. What matters is who you choose to become next, on purpose, not by accident. In practice, start auditing yourself. What beliefs still run your life? Are they from power or from fear? Do you spend your days creating or reacting? Keep what serves your future. Burn the rest. Loyalty to your evolution means choosing discomfort over familiarity. A man loyal to his future doesn't need to be understood. He moves differently. He looks like a threat to some and an enigma to others. He speaks less, builds more. His standards change. His circle tightens. His time becomes sacred. And that's exactly how power matures. And when people say, "You've changed," you smile, because that's the point. The old you wouldn't survive what you're about to build. Machiavellian knew only the man willing to sacrifice his own reflection can command the mirror of the world. But the journey doesn't end here, because all this knowledge, all this clarity becomes useless if it dies in theory. And now, the real test begins. Will you dare to apply everything you've learned? Now you know. This wasn't just another video. This was a code, a dangerous one, the kind that rewires your instincts and demands action. Because understanding Machiavelli means nothing if you're still begging for attention or explaining your worth. So ask yourself, which part hit you hardest? Which truth burned instead of comforting? Don't keep it to yourself. Put it into words. Write it. Own it. There's power in revealing your turning point, even in silence. And someone below might need to read what only you can say. You've seen that real authority doesn't beg, it builds. You've seen that power isn't given, it's taken in silence. So what's your next move? Will you keep walking like the man they remember, or finally become the man they can't predict? If you're still here, it's because something in you has already awakened. So do something with that. Drop your reflection in the comments, even a single word. Subscribe, not to follow trends, but to join the rare few sharpening their strategy, influence, and autodominio. Turn on notifications, not because we'll remind you, but because the world won't. This is your space now. And before you go, watch the next video that's already waiting for you, the one on screen and in the description. It's not just a continuation, it's the next level. And remember, the most feared man is not the one they all see. It's the one who built himself quietly until no one could ignore him again.